am very excited to be here this morning to present our speaker. I have Rick Boyd actually on the phone. He wanted to listen because he couldn't be here. So, Bobby, there's a phone up here. He says he's going to see you in here on when he gets back. That's delete. I can't delete it. I can't. But Bobby DiBiasio is in his 43rd season with the Cleveland Guardians, in his 44th year in Major League Baseball. He started with the Guardians in 1979 as assistant PR director and was named PR director in 1980. He is vice president of PR in 1988. The Lakewood, Ohio native was promoted to his current position in 2011. His lone season away from the Guardians was in 1987 when he served as PR director for the Atlanta Braves. But who remembers that, right? Bobby served as president of the Cleveland Guardian Charities. He is the president of the Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame. He is a member of the board of directors of the Cuyahoga County Public Library Foundation, the Bob Feller Act of Valor Foundation, and the Baseball Heritage Museum at League Park. Bobby is the host of the popular Guardians Alumni Roundtable Show on Bally Sports Great Lakes, as well as the Guardians Tales, where a Where Are They Now segment that airs pregame every Sunday on the Guardians Radio Network. In 1999, Bob was the recipient of the prestigious Robert O. Official Award for Public Relations Excellence in Major League Baseball, as well as being inducted into the Lakewood High School Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame. In 1986, Bobby was named the Public Relations Director to the Sports Illustrated Dream Team. Bobby graduated from Lakewood High School in 1973. He earned degrees in journalism and education from Ohio Wesleyan University. While there, he was sports editor of the school paper. Bobby played 1 year of basketball and 2 years of baseball. In 1978, he earned his master's in journalism from The Ohio State University and started a stint as the assistant sports editor of the Fremont, Ohio News Messenger before joining the Cleveland Guardians. Bob and his wife, Penny, reside in Solon, Ohio. They have 2 adult children, a daughter, Julie, and a son, Patrick. Please help me in welcoming Bobby DiBiasio.
Good morning, everybody. Hi, Rick. I'm turning you off. I'm just glad to be here. This is the first time I live in Solon, as you heard, and driving over 480 from Solon over here. My God, I took my hands in my life in my own hands. It's like NASCAR going on 480 in this hour in the morning. I can't believe I'm here, so I needed an extra cup of tea just to calm down. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk Guardians baseball with you. One thing we know, we're not going to go 162-0. So that's a result of yesterday's loss in a chilly, windy day in Kansas City. What I thought I'd do is just touch base on a couple things going on in our game globally. And then open it up to questions just to see what's on your minds and see what you have to ask about. Pardon me?
You're a brave man.
Well, I love doing the Q&A. I didn't bring my catcher's mask to try to protect myself. But it's been an incredible year and a half, I guess, when obviously we've gone through, well, 2 years. We've gone through COVID, we've gone through a name change, we've gone through lease negotiations, we've gone through a baseball lockout, we've gone through a whole lot of things in the world of baseball and here in Cleveland. And I think coming out of the lockout, there were some good things that happened, believe it or not. The game is going to change. And that was the number one goal, I think, of both the owners and the players. While they always negotiate about salary structure, you know, how can the players earn more, and how can owners try to continue to manage budgets. But this year, in these negotiations, it was all about trying to change the way the game is played. The last number of years have been an industry where there's more strikeouts than hits. There's either a strikeout, a walk, or a home run. Not a lot of action. The first 5 innings of a ball game go by in the blink of an eye, and then the last 4 innings, it's just a death march when they just roll people out of the bullpen, and guys take forever to get on the mound and throw a ball to home plate. How do we quicken the pace of the game? How do we get more action? How do we get guys to spread the ball around the field with the bat and run bases and steal bases and do the things that most people that are fans of our sport want to see? They want to see action out on the field. So they've instituted a number of changes, which I'll touch on. For this year, an interesting one is the universal DH. So the designated hitter, which was established in the early 70s in the American League and the National League, had been steadfast that isn't traditional baseball and had fought it for decades, obviously. They finally agreed to it. They finally realized that, having a guy who can do something with the bat, adds action, adds more excitement, more entertainment to the game. I know you're the same way if you're a ball fan, that how absolutely ridiculous it was when we get to the World Series and you play by 2 sets of rules. No other sport in the world would even think of doing something like that, and we've done it for I don't know how many years, and finally that's over. Because in our minds, the National League always had the advantage. All they had to do was put a hitter in the place of a pitcher when the Cubs or whomever, the Marlins or the Braves would come to Cleveland for a World Series, where we had to take our pitcher who didn't hit all year and ask him to do some things at the plate without getting hurt. And so it was an incredible disadvantage for the American League, and it finally, for some reason, the Major League Baseball was able to get the National League to understand that having a universal DH is going to add more entertainment to the game. One of the things they're doing this year, which you may find interesting, when you watch the next game on television, watch a little closely at the catcher. The catcher has now wearing a wristwatch. Picture a phone with 9 dials, the 9 buttons. And let's just say, I don't know the details, I haven't got this deep into it, but let's just say the top left where number 1 is on the button. Number 1 is fastball inside. So the catcher just boom. So no more putting the fingers down, and sitting there doing, pitch inside, fastball, third signal is the one we're doing. Now I got to do it again because I got to make sure the shortstop and the second baseman and the center fielder, and believe it or not, the center fielder has good enough eyes that he can see the signs from all the way out in center field. That's how they can hit a 100-mile-an-hour ball, is their eyesight is ridiculous. Yes, sir.
Isn't that going to make it really hard for the Houston Astros?
Well, it's funny. The comment was, is it going to make it hard for the Astros? And that's absolutely correct. But that's one of the reasons they're doing it, is they want to regulate technology. Not only do they want to quicken the pace of the game of baseball, which they believe this will do. Again, the catcher would have to send the signals down a couple times just to make sure the infielder. So now he presses a button on his wristwatch. The pitcher has a gizmo in his hat that tells him what he pressed. The shortstop, second baseman, and center fielder also have that gizmo in their hat. And boom, the pace of the game is going to pick up. Now in spring training, it was very interesting. Shane Bieber was the first guy to experiment with that in Goodyear, Arizona. And he was getting the ball back from the catcher and just firing away, because the moment, he caught it, he heard in his ear, what the catcher wanted him to throw, so he was ready to go. And all of a sudden, he was gassed, because he's just catching and throwing and catching and throwing. He's like, I got to learn how to do that. I got to step off, take a breath, figure it out. So the rhythm of the pitcher is something new that these guys are gonna have to deal with. But he afterwards said, this is great. He said, this is really gonna help most pitchers who like to get the ball and throw. We're not waiting on anything. And so the pace of the game, I think, is gonna increase. Next year, the other thing I think that is gonna be the best thing to happen in baseball, the pitch clock is actually gonna be implemented for the 2023 season. A pitcher, once he receives the ball back from the catcher, has 14 seconds to pitch the ball to home plate with nobody on base. With men on base, he has 19 seconds. They had tried earlier 25-second pitch clock and realized that that just was way too long a time because guys could get off the mound, walk around the mound, and get back up on the rubber and throw. So 14 seconds and 19 seconds, those two things just right there are going to quicken the pace of the game of baseball. Yes, sir.
When a guy's on base though,
Yes.
and the pitcher, if he throws it to first base,
Right.
how much time is that giving the switch throw? The guy goes to the base.
He will get back his 19 seconds after he throws to first base. Yes.
With this system, how does the pitcher shake off the pitch? You know, if he calls fastball and he doesn't want to throw a fastball.
Yeah, well, he says no. He's the guy with the ball. Yeah. There are a lot of old-time pitchers. You ask Sam McDowell, Gaylord Perry, any of those pitchers, you'd sit there and say, how often did you shake off a catcher? And he said, you know, both guys said, I never shook off a catcher. I threw whatever the hell I wanted and they had to be ready for it. I got the ball. It's my game and I'm in charge. And I thought Joe Askew, Johnny Romano, and those guys probably had a real fun time catching you guys, Ray Fossey and them. Yes, sir. Yes.
There are probably half a dozen people in this room that would have that hat within 1 year.
Right.
And right after that, there'll probably be a hat we can put on our phone.
To follow along. Well, and that's one of the reasons when they instituted it, they wanted to regulate technology so we don't have a Houston Astros situation that somebody can sit there and hack into it, the visiting team or the home team can have a way to do it. They claim that it's foolproof. Who knows? We will find out soon if it's foolproof. Yes, sir.
A lot of times the manager calls the pitches.
From the dugout, yeah, the pitching coach and the manager will call. You know, that's when you see the manager doing this stuff, you know. No, the manager does not have a watch. No. So when you do that, yes,
What's the penalty if they pass the 14 seconds?
a ball or a strike. No, what is it? It's a ball. It's a ball. Yeah, not a strike. It's a ball. Yeah. Strike would the game. I was standing on the line forever. Okay, game over. 27 strikeouts. I don't think. It's early in the morning, man. I didn't think about it. Yes, sir.
I mean, I would let's impact players like Mike Hargrove.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, we always bring up Mike Hargrove, the human rain delay, who had all the gyrations getting ready to get into the batter's box. And it's funny, when anybody ever asks him about that in interviews, he'd say, do you know the rule? And the reporter would say, what do you mean? He goes, well, the rule is you have to keep 1 foot in the batter's box. He goes, I always kept 1 foot in the batter's box. It just took me a long time to get the other foot in there after I had to go through all my stuff just to get myself ready. And Grover always talks about it, and he's right. His job as a professional athlete was to get base hits, get on base. And he says early in his career, he remembered a number of times where he quickened his pace in the batter's box and always made it out. He either struck out or hit a horrible ground ball. And he said, you know, I deserve it for myself to calm myself down and get myself in a position to hit. So I started to do some things. I hurt my thumb horribly, but I wasn't gonna take myself out of the active roster because once you go on the injured list, you don't know if you'll ever get back, or you get sent to the minors, you have no idea. And so the trainers figured out this little sponge thing that could go on my thumb so I could rest it against the handle of the bat. And that thing would come loose every time I swung, and so I had to put it back in place after every pitch. So that's where the whole thing started. So then I got my shirt and my hat, the human rain delay was created.
Yeah, we know that the payroll is one of the lowest in baseball.
Yeah.
And we don't have bats. Why didn't they go after some bats? You know?
Well, we did, but we didn't get it. I mean, it takes two to tango. Like Jose Ramirez wanted to stay here, and he was serious about it, not just using us to go and get a bigger, better deal from somebody else. And it took Paul Dolan to sit in a room with Jose and look him in the eye and make sure he was honest in his statement that, you know, we drafted the kid or signed him as a 16-year-old out of the Dominican Republic, and he went up and down in his career before he became an MVP caliber player. So he wanted to invest in us, and we wanted to invest in him, and it took he and Paul to sit across the table from one another and have that serious conversation. But as Chris Antonetti, our president of baseball operations, had said, our goal this offseason was to identify 4 major young players who we knew that teams were going to get rid of. The Matt Olsons who went from Oakland to Atlanta, etc. And go after them. Because of our rich farm system, we're willing to give up some guys and then put some money into the deal to keep that person that we acquired. Well, the Braves ended up giving them more money than we did, and the other guys that we went after, we just didn't get. And not that we didn't try, we tried hard. We weren't just gonna throw $10 or $12 million at somebody we didn't think was gonna make us any better. We have young guys we really believe in. You gotta be patient, the worst word in the history of sports. But if we weren't patient with Jose Ramirez, if you remember, we gave him the opportunity to be our starting shortstop. And he failed miserably and was sent to the minors. And then when he came back, we thought we had a utility infield. And all of a sudden, with his hard work, he turned into one of the best players in the game of baseball. And truly wanted to stay. He and Albert Bell was one of the first athletes in baseball to stand up when he became a free agent and said, I want to be the highest paid player in the game of baseball, and I can care less where I play. He didn't give the BS like, oh, I want to stay. We know you don't want to stay. We knew Lindor didn't want to stay. I mean, he said it in a press conference. He played the 2020 season in Cleveland with one leg out the door. He said it himself. And we just can't afford $34 million a year at 10 years on a player. And if you don't understand that, you don't agree with it, you don't know the economic realities in the game of baseball, because I would ask you, find me one team in middle market baseball that has given a single player $34 million. Name me one. You can't, because it doesn't happen. It's the economic reality. It doesn't mean we can't win. Since the Dolans have owned the franchise for 22 years, they're the longest tenured owners in our franchise history. We have the 9th best record in baseball. You know who has the top 8? There's only 2 other teams. One has an asterisk next to it. The Oakland Athletics is right in front of us, middle market team. And then the St. Louis Cardinals. The rest of them, who do you think? Dodgers, Yankees, Red Sox, all the big market teams. Our guys are pretty efficient. They know what they're doing. We invest in our people. We spend all our money on our people, not some one player. One player isn't going to make a difference in winning or losing in the game of baseball. It's not like basketball where LeBron can put the team on his back and go win. We're not built that way. Yes, sir.
What happens when, like, the picture unit or whatever it's gonna be in there?
Heaven forbid they have to put the signals down again if the equipment goes bad. Yeah, so that, yes, sir.
What, do I assume that the pitch clock starts once the batter's in the box?
No, it starts when the pitcher receives the ball from the catcher.
What if the batter just hangs around? That's what I asked you.
Get in the box and, you know, it's.
There's an easy
it's a-
strike.
Yeah, it's a strike. If the batter plays around, it ends up being a strike.
Okay.
Bobby, there were rumors that the reason the Indian Sports changed their name was that the commissioner put a lot of pressure on them for the All-Star game. Where did you from that?
No. First and foremost, the premise of your question is 100% inaccurate. We were not forced to do anything. We as an organization decided we felt this was the right thing to do after a deep dive discussion about issues going on in our country and how are we going to react to it. There are people who say that we traded getting rid of Chief Wahoo for the All-Star game. And I can tell you the issue involving that's an inaccurate statement as well. That for some reason they want to think there's these strings attached. Not every baseball team in Major League Baseball wants to play host to an All-Star game because it is an incredible burden on the organization in the middle of the season. Doesn't generate for the local team very much money. It does goodwill and it generates money for your community, but that's a jewel event of Major League Baseball. They make all the money on those events. We're just their hired guns to put it on. But we like doing that. So we submit in 2015, 2016, 17, 18, and we got declined because we had it in 97. And so they ended up giving it to us for 2019. And everybody, because we came off the issue in Toronto, which truly was one of the reasons the commissioner wanted us to rethink Chief Wahoo, was people forget this. We go up to Toronto to play in the American League Championship Series, and all of a sudden, you have to understand Canadian government. There's a court of law, like we have in the United States, but they also have a court of human rights, which we don't have. We have a court of law. So the court of human rights, some billionaire activist in Canada who happened to be in China, sent word back to his people to file an injunction to not allow the Toronto Blue Jays and the Cleveland Indians to have their game disseminated out of Toronto with that logo on their uniform. And it took up until 5 to 5:30. We had to have a truck drive to Toronto with a whole set of uniforms with Chief Wahoo taken off, and it still had the silhouette, obviously, from being dry cleaned and all. And how are we going to be able to walk on the field without Chief Wahoo on our sleeve? And at 5:30 with a game at 8 o'clock Eastern time, it finally came down that the judge said, no, throwing this out, they can play, they can disseminate it. $1 billion industry was going to be held up because of a piece of artwork. If you're a business person, think about that for a second. Take your emotion out and your thoughts on this logo or that logo. And just think about that for a second. It made no sense whatsoever. So I will tell you this. Since we've changed, we have not had a single corporate sponsor say no to us. We've had more come to do business with us because there were corporate sponsors who did not want to attach the Indians logo to their product. And so from that world, we've seen what we thought we would see. From a ticket perspective, there are people who don't like us and have said we're not going to buy tickets anymore because of the move you made. And we understood that was gonna happen. And you put a winning team on the field and hopefully they'll come back. Yeah.
What's the shift talked about?
Yes.
What's happening?
Well, the shift is definitely one of the other changes that I didn't get to. In 2023, there's serious talk, and they're getting close to announcing this, that you can do the shift, but all three infielders on the right side of the diamond have to have their cleats on the dirt. No more softball guy in short right field, if you choose to do that. So again, think about it, and Stephen Kwan, a kid that we just had in right field, got his big league hit yesterday, first big league hit. Kid from California, played at Oregon State when they won the College World Series. He didn't strike out in all of spring training, didn't strike out yesterday, walked twice, got a base hit. He's a kid that puts the ball in play all over the field. That's the kind of kids we've been drafting the last few years instead of the swing and miss home run guy, because we really believe that putting the ball in play and moving around is going to be the nature of this game. And so we've not only stockpiled a ton of pitchers, I think the last draft, out of 21 draft picks, 19 were pitchers. Because last year's draft was so pitching heavy, and this year's draft, there's not many. There's not nearly as many quality college or high school pitchers in the draft for whatever reason. And we made sure that we jumped on all of them in 19. Yes, sir?
But the larger bases.
Yeah, well, that's the other one. Right now, a base, and think about this too, the base is 15 square inches. They are now 18 square inches. So that extra space on a bang-bang play at first base, a guy wanting to steal gets there just a little bit ahead of the throw. We stole some bases yesterday on the Gold Glove catcher of the Kansas City Royals, Salvador Perez. One is that's the kind of game we're going to have to play. We're going to have to run from first to third. We're going to have to score from first on certain hits in the outfield and do some steals and run the bases efficiently and things of that nature as we learn who we are offensively. But the big bases are a major part of what's coming. The automatic strike zone, computer, I mean, the technology's been there the last couple of years to help umpires have a consistent strike zone. It's going to be implemented pretty soon in the game of baseball. They're experimenting in the minor leagues with how many times you can throw to first base to when one batter's at the plate, how many times you can throw over in that one batter matchup. Instead of throwing over 5 times, you can only do it a couple times. So there's other things they're trying to do to quicken the pace of the game of baseball. Yes, sir.
What's going to happen to John Adams? I mean, we always associate you guys on base and you hear the drum beating. That was just part of our,
Well, sadly, John is
health-wise.
health-wise is
It's not
not.
associated with being an
Oh God, no. John Adams would be in the ballpark coming up Friday when Mr. Hanks throws out the first pitch. He's going to throw it to Larry Doby Jr. as we celebrate the 75th anniversary of Larry Doby breaking the color barrier in the American League, which we think will be a real fun pregame ceremony. John would be there if he was healthy enough. You know, his drum, for whatever reason, you know, people want to associate drums with Indians. No offense. I was trying to figure out where I was going to make a comment. Yeah, I was trying to figure out how I was going to make a comment with you, brother. But sadly, John's health is at such a state that he can't do anything physically right now. So, yeah.
You mentioned mentioned corporate sponsors before.
Yeah.
Is it true, we have a car wash baron here, and I heard rumors that he may take over for Union Home Mortgage, is that?
I would hope so, but I hope there's nobody here from Union Home Mortgage, where Hanny is the spokesperson. We love all people that want to be partners with us, so. Yes?
Yeah, Bobby. TV.
Yeah.
So I'm a season ticket holder. I would love to see some games.
Yeah, the TV issue, baseball the last few years is really trying to figure out how to navigate the world of streaming and where you make money and how to sign a deal with Apple TV and sign a deal with YouTube and sign a deal with this and that. All I can tell you is that the old thought process of regional sports networks are going to be a thing of the past. And so how you navigate us getting our product to you, again, as you can imagine, under a certain age, everybody's watching our games on an iPad or a phone, not sitting in front of their television for 3 hours. The people that are doing that are a little more gray-haired and like me, and that's how we're watching the game. But that's not how people, the majority of people now, access their entertainment. How do we fall into that category and navigate and figure out the most efficient, effective way, and also generate some revenue for the sport? So I wish I had more details, but it gets brass tacks. Everybody in this room who thought they were saving money and they're in a sports world and got rid of Spectrum to go to these other services because you thought you were saving money because they told you they were the home of all sports, which was a lie. They didn't have a contract with specifically Major League Baseball or a number of others. And then all of a sudden you spent your money with them and now you're not getting anything. Well, that was false advertising. They didn't have the rights to be able to stand up and say that. So AT&T is a place to go. Spectrum is always the place. If you want every one of our games, Spectrum is still the place to go.
What station are they on now?
Well, Valley Sports, same one, 1308 if you're a Spectrum person. That hasn't changed. Yes?
They're still trying to get something to 10% interest, and is there any room?
Well, the minority ownership issue, yes, and we're close. John Sherman, who now, he and like 11 partners are now owners of the Kansas City Royals. He's a Kansas City guy. You know, John Sherman came into us just like Jimmy Haslam did in the NFL. You know, you buy yourself into the industry and become a minority owner. So you become vetted by the league. So John Sherman comes in as a minority partner, and he would have been up to 30% ownership of our team by this year or next year, if I have it right. I mean, I don't read those documents, but just what I'm thinking and where that would have ended if he ended up becoming more than 50% and Paul's still, 52, 48. I don't know where that scale would have gone. But he bought into us because he tried to buy the Kansas City Royals and they kept telling him they're not for sale, but he's a baseball freak, had the money, ventured into a partnership with Paul, and all of a sudden Kansas City Royals become available. Well, when they become available and he goes to Major League Baseball and the Kansas City Royals and said, I want to buy him, well, he's already been vetted. That's why you do it. You don't have to start over and fight 6 different people who are trying to buy the team. You've already gone through the process and they like you, and so, yeah, you're a hometown guy, and he was able to get, again, 10 or 11 partners to buy in to the franchise. One thing you need to know about us is we're one of the only family-owned franchises in Major League Baseball. You know, our owner doesn't have some other company that he made all his money, 5-generation Cleveland family. And again, we work hard to just make sure that we provide every resource for our athletes to be the best they can be. From a business perspective, we have 7 campuses. Our 4 minor leagues, the Dominican Academy, Goodyear, Arizona, state-of-the-art 12-month training center, and then Progressive Field. All of that with robotic cameras, technology, minor leagues, new kitchens, strength and condition areas. We believe in our people. We spend our money on our people, not one player. It makes no sense to give one player $340 million over 10 years. Our job is to make sure that we provide we have 190 athletes in addition to the team you see here in Cleveland. So that's a lot of athletes that we need to take care of, and we believe in them, and it's our job to make them the best they can be. So I think we're going to have a fun year this year. Chicago is the team to beat. The last year, you know, we came in second place, and our whole starting rotation went down, and our second best hitter, Ramirez, had 30 homers and 85 ribbies and missed 5 weeks with an oblique injury. So while people wanted us desperately to find some outfielder, you don't throw money at somebody that's not going to make you a better winner just to appease people because, well, we did spend money, but it isn't going to move the needle, wins and losses. We believe in Josh Naylor over some of the guys who are on the free agent when this kid comes back. People like that, Stephen Kwan, a few others. So always appreciate the opportunity to chat, and thank you, Go Guardians.